Hello and welcome to Lightcast Reviews. My name is Stu, and today is a very special day. March 9th, 2017 marks the 20th anniversary of the death of one of hip-hop's most loved and most played artists, Biggie Smalls. Now, as a teen growing up listening to hip-hop, you couldn't escape Biggie's big beat tracks and smooth flow. He had a way of keeping you gripped in his verse while you were bouncing your head to a banger of a beat. Now, I grew up in a time when the rivalry between Biggie and Tupac rocked the mainstream media, and you couldn't escape the age-old East Coast versus West Coast argument. However, I think in today's world, there are very few people who couldn't rattle off a verse or two of Biggie's, or even Tupac's hits. Now, we here at Lightcast are all huge hip-hop fans, so to celebrate the life of one of the most influential hip-hop artists of all time, today we are going to revisit the album Life After Death, released in 1997, shortly after the death of Biggie Smalls himself. Let's take this track by track. Track 1 is the Life After Death intro. We start the album off with Diddy mourning the loss of his friend. However, this wasn't the loss of his friend from the actual death. This was actually him mourning the loss from a song called Suicidal Thoughts from the Ready to Die album. This, however, does set up the next track perfectly. Track 2 is Somebody's Gotta Die. The track starts string heavy in an almost Wu-Tang-esque riff. It's hard to not nod your head to this beat. Biggie is woken in the track, and he's given news that a friend has been shot. He then proceeds to tell us his plan and how he intends to get vengeance. However, not all ends well, as at the execution of the plan, and as the gun is firing, the victim turns and he's holding his baby daughter. Track 3 is Hypnotize. From the somber to the club banger, we move straight into one of Biggie's most well-known tracks. There's really not much to say on this track other than that every time I hear it, I really need to dance. This is one of those guaranteed floor fillers. Track 4 is Kick in the Door. Starting with a hip-hop skit of a guy ranting about God knows what, we have one of the hardest hitting tracks of the album. This hits like a diss track and flows like an attack on anybody who's brave enough to step to the man himself. Kick in the Door waving the 4-4. It is often noted that a few lines in this track are directed at certain rappers, but that secret now rests with the man himself. Track 5 is Fuck You Tonight featuring R. Kelly. We move straight into a suave R. Kelly chorus and a smooth Biggie flow. The title tells you all you really need to know on this one. Bonus round, the word fucking is used 22 times in this song. Really not one for your grandparents. Track 6 is Last Day. This track features Lox, who is made up of Jadakiss, Sheek Louch, and Styles P. It's an atypical hard-hitting ego ride of who they are and why they are the best. If you like the macho hard-hitting pure rap, this one is probably for you. Track 7, I Love the Dough, featuring Jay-Z and Angela Winbush. This track is about money. Lots and lots of money. And it's also about why having it is better than not having it. With Angela's smooth and powerful chorus telling us, you gotta let it show. Show that money. This beat is a real masterclass and smooth. It'll make you feel like a real baller. On a budget. Track 8 is What's Beef. Exploring the world of rap beef and calling it out for the bullshit that it is. Violence is beef, and words are just that. Words. Track 9 is an interlude. Nothing really much to say about this other than it's Biggie spitting over a School D track called What Does It Mean. Track 10 is Mo Money, Mo Problems. The second huge club hit for Biggie, Mo Money, Mo Problems is the biggest dancefloor filler on this album. This is an absolute banger. It's almost a follow-on from I Love the Dough, except for this is exploring the darker side of money, meaning that if you have more of it, then you have more trouble. This track features Diddy and Mace with a sample from Diana Ross's I'm Coming Up. Play this in any club and see if people don't immediately hit the dance floor. Track 11 is I Can't Say That Word, Bleed, or as I like to call it, Fellas Bleed. This is a story rap, and it follows the narrative of an upcoming drug deal that Biggie and his boys intend to go to, kill everyone, and steal everything that they have. It reads like a story, but it flows like absolute silk. It ends with the deed done and the boys being triumphant, only to realize then that their car has been towed because they parked too close to a fire hydrant. Now, this was actually inspired by a true story of when Mace did the same thing. Track 12, I Got a Story to Tell. This is a track about Biggie meeting a woman and going to her house and banging, finding out that she then has a man who plays for the New York Knicks. That player turned out to be none other than Anthony Mason. This was not confirmed, however, until 2016 in an interview with Fat Joe, and then confirmed by Diddy himself. The song ends with Biggie tying the girl up and pretending to rob the place so that the boyfriend doesn't find out what was really happening. What actually ends up happening is he ends up robbing the guy for real and then leaving to find his boys to tell this crazy story. Track 13 is Notorious Thugs, and the first track of the second CD. This is a collab with Bone Thugs and Harmony, a simple ode to staying true to the gangster style and ensuring that you recognize their skills. Track 14 is Miss You. It's a track talking about a friend of Biggie's who is referred to as Mr. O, who after his death, Biggie has a hard time dealing with and talks about the loss of his friend. Track 15, Another, featuring Lil' Kim. This is an upbeat and funky track, and it features none other than Lil' Kim herself. This was apparently inspired by a real-life argument with Lil' Kim and Biggie that ended up with Lil' Kim being choked out by Biggie. Ouch. Track 16 is Going Back to Cali. The fabled hip-hop phone call skit starts this one off, and then bang, straight into a sample of Zap, More Bounce to the Ounce. This simple track is a love song to Cali, reminding everyone that no beef will ever change his love of the West Coast. Track 17 is the 10 Crack Commandments. This sees Biggie telling the story from a Moses perspective, laying down the 10 crack commandments to be followed. Track 18 is The Player Hater. This has samples by the Delphonics and Basketball Jones, and every time I hear this track, I can't help but feel that Andre 3000 drew inspiration here for the Love Below album. One of the slower and stranger tracks on the album, it has an odd charm to it. Track 19 is Nasty Boy. Another phone skit starts this one off, you gotta get him in there. And I suppose this is probably my least favourite track on the album. This is just a recount of various sexual encounters and a minimal beat. This is the one track I always skip through. Track 20, Sky's the Limit. This is a trip through Biggie's life, starting from his school days and how he moved to a school that also had Jay-Z, Busta Rhymes and DMX. He then moves on to age 12 and how he had to deal drugs and was kicked out of his home, to getting his own gang of people to deal drugs for him. Then he moves towards the decisions that drove him to rap. Look at him now. 21, The World is Filled. This begins with the line, the world is filled with pimps and hoes. We'll just talk about those I know. This is one of my favourite tracks on CD2. There's not much to say about it, it's just a smooth track featuring Carl Thomas and Diddy rapping over it. This one's just a pure headliner. Track 22 is My Downfall. Another phone skit starts this one. Again, rappers love those phone skits. This one talks a lot about himself and his crew and how jealous rivals want to see his demise. Talks about his fear of death and the worries that keep him up at night. Track 23 is The Long Kiss Goodnight. Now this track is surrounded in controversy, usually due to people claiming that this track is a diss track to Pac. But many of Biggie's closest have come out to say that this was not the case over and over again. Despite this, people still believe that this is a retort to Hit 'Em Up, which was released in June in 1996 by Pac. Track 24, You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You, is the song that ends the album. It's a play on a Dean Martin song called You're Nobody Till Somebody Loves You. This is an almost prophetic song, sealing the album up and cementing the legacy of Biggie. Life After Death is one of my favourite and most played albums. It gave us some of the most loved and coveted hip-hop tracks of all time, and even to this day has people up on the dance floor. If you have never delved into Biggie's music outside of his mainstream success, then this album is a great way to start. It's a masterclass of hip-hop, and from a subjective point of view, having only one song that I don't really vibe with is quite an achievement. This album covers a wide array of subjects and a lot of personal experience, and each track is masterfully crafted to deliver its material. From the beats to the lyrics, you'd be hard-pressed to find many albums better than this one. 20 years on, this album is still straight fire, and here at Lagcast, we give it a solid 4 out of 5. Long live Biggie.